How was it done exactly?
Well, they were at the cusp of modern computing back then. They had computers in World War II, and
they were as big as this building. But
there was a group of scientists in the UK that were looking at very sophisticated computing facilities, and they were using that for a lot of it was used for code breaking, but some of it was used for very common things like determining the ballistic pathway of shells and things of that nature, designing warships. But that was the dawn of using computers for something really practical and useful.
But how was that AI though?
Well, they took intelligence that they had gathered and they used that as data. So anytime you take human intelligence and codify that in a machine, that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Now, we like to think about machine learning these days as being equal to artificial intelligence. That's one brand of it. But taking human knowledge and recapturing it in a computer, that's justifiably artificial intelligence as well. Yeah. So we've had AI in that sort of flavor for a long, long time. That's not really new. We take a piece of software and we train it to accomplish something that a human can accomplish. That's been around a long time. What's different in the last year or so is something called artificial general intelligence, AGI.
Yeah, I've heard of it. So I think, in fact, Rachel and I talked about, narrow AI versus not narrow.
People sometimes call it
specialized or
deep learning and things of this nature. Essentially, if I can boil it down, and my AI scientist friends, please forgive me, but it's learning how to learn. Mm-hmm. So there was an experiment some years ago by two Cornell professors, and they took a bar of metal and they hung it on a hinge. So this bar of metal swings back and forth like a pendulum, right? And then they took another bar of metal and they put a hinge on the end of that. And so now this thing swings back and forth in complicated ways. And they took a piece of software that they built that was steeped in AGI, and they had it simply observe this bar of metal moving back and forth. And it reverse engineered Newton's second law of motion.
Wow.
That's a flavor of AI that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And so when you have things like, you mentioned ChatGPT, what is that? That's something that has now been trained on language. It has essentially crawled the entire internet to gather every piece of evidence of language to learn what it can learn. No presupposition, no, hey, I want you to find out this. It just is unleashed. And that's what scares people, and justifiably so. Like, what is it going to learn? And could it learn bad things? Could it learn how to steal a car? Could it learn how to break?
This whole bias problem that you talked about comes into play as well, because if it's learning from, if the internet content that it's learning from has a bias built into it, right? Like for example, what sources create the most content on the internet? Mainstream media, news sources, entertainment, right? Things like this. So, and those agencies or agents, as you will, are they're putting out tons and tons of content every single day relative to the unbiased scientific study that comes out.
So if it just blindly learns the slanted content, it's going to be slanted itself. Yeah. So again, the people, particularly the people in OpenAI, recognize this and they get it to learn what slant is.
Yeah. Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has some capability to sort of de-varnish.
It just got scarier.
Yeah. And we even do that ourselves. We get a lot of data.
We talk about that. We talk about having a certain filter. Well, you got to have a filter when you look at this, right?
That's right. So they practice that.
This comes back to the thing that you said early on, which is taking what a human knows and does and putting it into a computer, not just the factual things or the sequential things, but so what you're saying is conceivable to teach the computer to teach the machine how to have a filter for certain things the same way humans do.
That's right.